to welcome you all for joining the CentralStar Beef webinar tonight. We're excited about being able to do this with you. Just a few things to give you an idea of how it's going to work. We will address the questions that were submitted through registration first. Then we will open it up for questions by folks here in the room. And then after that, we do have some information on ideas on how to maximize conception on the farm. We've also got some sire highlight information, and we are hopeful that we will have Ryan Bodenhausen on the call with us today from the Select Sires Beef Department. If at any time you have a question, just interrupt the beef specialist, or you can type your question in the chat, whatever you would prefer. And I think those are kind of the housekeeping items to get us started. My name is Kelly Brisley, and I get to work with advertising and communications for CentralStar, but I am certainly no beef specialist. So the folks that you're going to be talking with tonight are our beef specialist team, and I'm going to ask them to do a brief introduction of themselves. So Adam Wood, let's start with you.
All right, my name's Adam Wood, and I live in Ithaca, Michigan, which is in the dead center of the state, lower peninsula anyway. Been AI and cows. I learned how to breed back in the 1900s. So my kids think that was a long time ago. I've been AIing for a profession since 2009. Worked with CentralStar for 2.5 years. So some of these bulls are kind of new to me, but I'm learning on the go. And I run about 30, 35 head of cow-calf pairs, predominantly Simmentals and Red Angus. So.
All right, thanks, Adam. Scott, let's jump to you next.
So my name is Scott Ellevold. I've been in the AI industry for 45 plus years, long time. I'm located in Western Wisconsin. I've got Simmental cows. We run 45 cow-calf pairs. I think this part of the state is going to be growing as far as cow numbers. And my place in that over the years is I've had a lot of experience in the industry, hundreds of synchronization programs, that kind of thing. And I just kind of continue doing that. So as far as me being a specialist, a beef specialist of any kind, I think the title was put on me simply because I'm in the middle of dairy country, and I was probably the only person anybody knew had beef cows. So we'll make him a specialist, and that'd be me. So I'll leave it at that.
That's not true, Scott Ellevold. We know better than that. You're a humble person. Well, we're going to round out our experts tonight from the CentralStar team with Trevor Yeager. Trevor, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Trevor Yeager. I've been with CentralStar for about 10 years now. Originally came in as a beef specialist, along with learning to breed cattle and stuff like that. I've had a few roles over the years. Recently, now I kind of work with hiring on top of being a beef specialist. Mainly me and my wife, we live in Southwest Wisconsin, down by Mineral Point. We have about 70 purebred Angus cow-calf pairs that we run and do some breeding stock, things like that. I learned a little bit about AI. We grew up on a bigger beef farm, did no AI, only had bulls. So everything I kind of learned was by myself. So I started doing all that around the age of 15. So I've been doing that for quite some time now. So done a lot with just managing cows and things like that on top of working here. So.
And let's see, you are also on, is it Wisconsin Cattlemen's? What board are you on?
Yep. So I sit as on a Wisconsin Cattlemen's board. So, and I've done some local organizations, things like that. So I just started that about a year ago from being asked. So I kind of jumped in on that, which has been a good experience. So.
Good. All right. If Ryan's on, go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce. Don't think I see you. So
Thank
I don't see him
Just-
yet,
he was
but
having- I would say he's having some travel issues, so I'm not sure if he'll be able to jump on. So
okay, all right. Well, if we see him, we will get him introduced. So that's our beef specialist team. And like I said, tonight we're going to start with some of the questions that were sent to us through registration. Let's start with understanding EPDs. One of the questions that came in, and Trevor has agreed to field a little bit, is what do you look for with EPDs? How do I understand them to use them?
yeah, so a little bit about EPDs. Obviously, the first thing that's pretty important is the fact that they are different across all breeds. So you're going to see different indexes, different numbers, things like that, even as far as where standard calving ease is amongst the Angus breed or the Hereford breed or the Simmental breed and things like that. So in the back of the sire directory, there is a cross breeds comparison you can always look at. I always tell people, honestly, the biggest thing in our sire directory that's good is a little cheat sheet on the bottom that says the percent rank. So on the bottoms of all the EPDs, mainly there's the EPD, then the accuracy, and then the bottom column is percent rank. And that generally means, like, if a bull ranks, on the bottom, if they have a 1, that means they're the top 1% of the breed for that individual trait. So then you can kind of go across the bottom there and see how good they rate amongst the different traits if you're trying to kind of read them quickly to understand what might be good versus average.
Okay. Very good. Does Scott or Adam, do you have anything else you want to add to that? Otherwise, we have another EPD question that we're going to throw at Scott.
No, that was very well said, Trevor. And yeah, I'm same way. I like that little cheat sheet at the bottom there, the percentage ranks. So.
All right. Another question that came in regarding EPDs, Scott. So how do you use EPDs to pair the right bull to create the right female?
So after, Trevor explained EPDs very well. And again, I'm not 100% sure where we're at with the question, but I'm going to say that they're asking specifics in regards to breeding females. And depending on your association, if you're in a breed association, if it's an Angus or whatever it is, you will be able to look up the animal, see what her EPDs are, and then you can look in the catalogs, directories, or wherever it is, and look at your EPDs. As Trevor said, a lot of the rankings are listed on these EPD sheets. On females, I know on the Simmental Association, it'll say where her ranking is for the maternal numbers. So when it comes to picking bulls, you would want to look for bulls then. If you have females that are low in maternal numbers, you want to pick bulls that are high in maternal numbers and mate those females accordingly. There's lots of different directions you can go. I can go, I guess, in regards to this question. It depends on what your goals are. If your goals, and I think everybody's goals should be about breeding females. Females first. I always breed for females first. The bulls come along, and in general, the bull's destination is the same. So I think it's key to always breed high maternal females.
And I will throw in, if anybody has a question or can clarify any of these questions that we're throwing out there, please just jump in and ask. All right, we're going to move off EPDs for the moment, and we're going to go to Adam. We had a question about new Cabinese Hereford sires. What do we have?
As far as new bulls, my pick of the group was kind of the TH Venture bull, the 7 HP 131. Look, you can look at his picture. I mean, that is a stud of a bull. But from what I've heard about him, he's a very balanced bull. You look at him from, across the EPD spread, excellent calving ease. There's really no holes all the way across that. And if you wanted to get nitpicky, maybe you could ask for a little more weaning and yearling weight. But again, getting those calves out of a first calf heifer unassisted is really the main goal there. And I think he has enough weaning and yearling weight to be sufficient. But he would be my pick to try a new bull. But which is kind of tough because there's some really good proven bulls in here too. So
off the top of your head, is there an older proven bull, Hereford, that you like calving ease?
The Cuda has done a great job for quite a while, and whether or not you've used him in the past and might have some relation to him would be the only problem with using him. But I mean, if not, even the Gold Rush bull seems to be doing a pretty good job now. He's got a few calf crops under his belt, and hearing positive reports on him too. So,
all right, thanks, Adam. We'll stay on the calving ease theme. Trevor, talk to us about recommendations for calving ease Angus sires.
Yeah, so as far as a newer bull that some people have been looking at there's a bull called Duracell. He'd be one of our newer bulls to line up this year. He's a resilient son, really, really high on calving ease, pretty good growth bull for being on, the calving ease end of things. And then kind of a good just profile all the way across there. He comes out of a really good cow family, out of cow that came from the Warners back when they were in production on that side of things. But Duracell's been pretty good there as far as young bulls. If you're looking for an older bull that you haven't used yet, is Hometown. We had a lot of use of Hometown over the last couple of years. So he's actually gotten to the point where his semen has dropped over the years as far as price. So he is a little bit more affordable. People kind of avoided it in the beginning. And he has been a top registration bull for the Angus breed here the last couple of years too. So I'd say he's been a really good one that people have had a lot of success with too.
All right. Simmental, Scott, same question. Somebody asked, what are some easy calving purebred Simmental bulls?
So I'm gonna back up a little bit and go back to Trevor and ask Trevor, what about Tahoe and some of the Tahoe sons?
Yeah, Tahoe is a great bull too. I mean, there's countless calving ease bulls that we've had around. So any of the Tahoe sons are really good too. We have had a lot of use of Tahoe, I'd say, in kind of the people I've worked with over a lot of the years. So it's probably getting to the point where he's getting a little bit trickier to use for a lot of our customers because he's been a good fit for a lot of years. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't used any Tahoe blood, I would strongly suggest that. He's usually number one, but we've also hit that point now too where we've got a lot of doubters out of him for a lot of people too. So just trying to look a little bit different.
Sure. I just didn't want anybody to miss out on him because he is a very good bull, one of the best probably.
And probably towards your question, a very good one for making Sim Angus. So now you can talk about your Simmentals.
Yeah, that's kind of part of it. You're absolutely right. You're right. So on the Simmental side, a bull that I mentioned earlier, I've got calves out of him, and his name is Enhancement. He's a proclamation son out of a Beacon. Phenomenal calving ease numbers. I think he's a 19 for calving ease direct. I believe he's -3 pounds on birth weight. All kinds of tremendous maternal numbers. I think he's in the top 1% for maternal calving for milk. Growth, weaning weight, yearling weight, he's in the top 15%. And then when you get to docility, he's in top 10%. Carcass, now we go to the carcass numbers. For carcass weight, top 1% of the breed for marbling, which is huge to get that marbling number. And then he's in the top 15% also for ribeye. I've got calves on them. I actually have yearlings on them. Very, very nice made animals. I mean, they're very smooth through the shoulder, long, clean front end. Got good thickness all from basically from head to tail. So he's one that I really like. The other one that I've actually calved out some of the first daughters, and that's the bull Progressive. Again, that's another bull that goes back to the C4 sugar cow. But these progressives, they came really easy. I just calved them out. Done a great job. Very good mothers. Maybe a little bit too much frame than what I'm used to. Or what I was really after. I didn't expect to get that much frame, because usually when you get these bulls that are so calving, generally they're a little bit behind in their growth, even as yearlings or as cows. But these progressives really grew. So I think that's two bulls calving, and they've got a lot of growth to them for sure. Look at them.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. The next question that came in through registration, Trevor, we're going to lob it to you first, is share some of the success rate differences in using a synchronization program versus heat detection. And Scott and Adam can chime in on this also, but we'll start with you, Trevor.
So, overall, I mean, most people aren't ever going to sit there and say a natural heat isn't your best heat. However, you can get a lot of good natural-ish heats off of synchronization as long as you're following protocols correctly. The first issue you're ever going to run into is, number one, is your labor situation or your skill level. Obviously, if you know how to breed cows yourself, it opens up a lot of opportunities. If you need to call somebody to breed cows, that's a different situation there too. But I mean, without a doubt, I'd always say you gotta do what's best for your operation. If you're somebody that's home all day and you know how to breed cows and you have time to watch your cattle, if you get some natural heats and you can work around that schedule, that's good there. But there are a lot of people that can do synchronization protocols, and once you get things really fine tuned over a few years, you can be running 70-80%, pretty consistently once you've got everything tuned in. So those aren't bad odds either, which then in turn can be really good for you if you're working off the farm job, to be able to have your cows grouped. If you need to have a certain AI specialist come in to breed the cows at one time to make it convenient for them, and then on the backside too, you'd have kind of the grouped up calving. So if you need to be home from work for a week or something like that, or whatever works best for the operation, to have people there watching cows calve. So I think overall, those are probably a little bit of the differences. And if you get some good standing heats off of a cedar sink, which cedars really do well there, on that flip side of getting cows to show heat. So
Adam or Scott, do you have anything to add to that? And if no, all right. We did have another synchronization type question. It was just synchronization breeding protocols. So we thought what would be good is to have the specialist share, one of the breeding protocols that they've seen work successfully, either at their farm or in another farm, and kind of the pros and cons of it. So Trevor, why don't you go ahead and you give us an example, and then we'll move to Adam, and then Scott, if you've got one, that would be great.
Yeah. So I can start with a little bit of kind of what I do, and I think me and Scott are probably a little similar. I think we both like to use a 7 and 7. So that was released a few years back. And kind of the goal of that, I mean, it is a little bit of a longer process. So obviously we're going to put a cedar in and leave it in for 14 days. We're going to start out with a shot of prostaglandin right when we put the cedar in. And then at that 7-day mark is kind of when you'd be doing the basic OV-sync of giving a GnR8 shot, and then going through the rest of the cycle as you would on a standard 7-day sync protocol. Big study wise, I would say for the most part, we do see like national average, like a 6 to 7% bump on a 7 and 7. So that is good there, but it obviously includes an extra week, more planning. You're gonna have to give twice the amount of hormones and things like that as far as when you are getting the cattle prepped. But I've had really good luck with it personally, so I really do like the 7 and 7. And then there on the heifer side of things, it did get released about a year ago, approved to be able to use the 7 and 7 on heifers. So I have been using that with good luck. There is also the 30-day heifer protocol that is the 14-day cedar that you put in the heifers. Also, that does work well, but that does take quite a bit of planning, you know, a month ahead in order to use that protocol.
Adam, thoughts
Oh.
on?
Well, there's a lot of options, and I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel. The 7-day cedar sync. So I guess a select sync plus cedar, and time AI, any non-responders has just been it was kind of the one that started it all, and it's still a go-to. And is for me, I enjoy simple, and that is kind of your nuts and bolts, simplest one that there is. Still getting good results. I said, just, time AI and those non-responders with GNRH, and it's the least amount of trips through the chute. That's going to be the next thing. It's the kind of a big determining factor is labor and ability. How much ability do you have to handle, these animals? To me, the fewer times through the chute, the better. But that's the one I like to stick with personally.
Okay. Scott.
Yeah, so both, again, Trevor's correct. The 7 and 7 has worked tremendous for me over here in a lot of herds. I mean, we've hit 100% in a couple of these sync programs with the 7 and 7. I agree also with like Adam, but I'm gonna go way back back in the day sort of, and when Adam mentioned simple, here's how simple I am and how lazy I am, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm gonna go back in the day of where, so my breeding program, and again, it depends on what your technician skills are, or if you have a technician that's willing to work with you. So for me, because I do my own AI, I just start breeding, and what I do is I say I'm going to start breeding cows today. I watch cows for 7 or 8 days and breed cows accordingly as to whoever comes into heat and breed them. And then on day 8, then I will run the remaining cows through and give them all lutealize. So what that does then is it really eliminates the number of cows that I initially have to run through a sync program. Some years I can get 2/3 of the cows to come into heat again during that week, that's 7 days, depending on how the calving went and all those kind of things. So that's what I do here. Or if I get in a situation, go, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be breeding, then what I'll do, I'll just do it backwards, and then I will have to run all cows through the chute, give all cows lute, watch for heat, and then on day 8 afterwards, anybody that didn't respond, right, I run them through again and give them another shot of lute. And usually I capture 95 or to 100% of those cows in heat by doing it. Again, maybe my herd's a little bit different. I've called hard over the years for repro. So again, it makes it kind of simple. I'm old. I don't have a lot of help. So the fewer times I have to run up to the chute, that's what I do. So I don't know if you guys have ever tried that or not, but that's what I do here, and it works for me. So.
And I believe all the synchronization protocols are printed in the beef directory. So that is a good spot to go take a look at them. Or if you don't have access to that, I will be sending a follow-up email and including the contact information for our beef specialists so that you'll be able to reach out to Scott, Adam, or Trevor directly to get more information or guidance or assistance. So
Kelly, that program that I just talked about that I do, that is
yeah.
so old. That's so old. It's not even in the catalog.
Oh, so you gotta write it on. You gotta etch it in stone for me.
Right. They don't even put that in the book anymore. That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. Yeah. All right, well, we've got one other question that was sent in ahead of time, and then we'll see if anybody on the call has questions for the beef specialists. Adam, I'm gonna send this one over to you. Someone asked, what are my options for AI service throughout the, from where they're at in the area that we serve?
So through CentralStar, we do have a lot of technicians, but that is very area dependent. There are some gaps where we don't have service, but the best way is, we got all the contacts through on the web. Any of the beef specialists can help answer those questions for you. And if we can't, we know who to ask to get those. But there are a lot of options out there in a lot of areas. But like I said, unfortunately, some areas we don't have many technicians in. But never
Okay.
hurts to ask.
Yep, you can contact a beef specialist. You can also just call the CentralStar office and, they would need to know what county you're in, and then they would end up connecting you with the area sales manager there. But if for really beef specific stuff, you're encouraged to reach out to the beef specialists on the call today. So before we would move into anything that we've prepared, does anyone on the call have a question that they would like to ask Trevor, Scott, or Adam? And I did just receive a message from Ryan that he's landed and he's trying to get off the plane so he can log on. Ryan Bodenhausen with Select Sires. So hopefully he will be able to join us at near the end of the call today. All right, I don't see any questions or don't hear any.
If people do have questions, just make sure you unmute yourself.
Yep.
Or you can type it in the chat box.
All right. Well, let's, we did, we build this as a how to get more out of your beef breeding program. And in that, we wanted to start with ideas for maximizing conception on the farm. And so Trevor is going to steer this conversation for a few minutes here to give us some ideas about how we can improve conception. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, so we just wanted to cover some of the basics. Obviously, there are a lot of experts in other fields that you guys can reach out to for more advice on different products. A couple of the basic simple things would be is obviously when you're feeding, there's going to be different times of years, when you're breeding the cows. So obviously if you're breeding this time of year, there's a transition from hay to grass where, the grass a lot of times this year is a little bit more watery versus, substancey. So it's just making sure that the cows are still getting adequate nutrition when they're being bred at this time of year. There is stuff when it gets to be later fall and the cows, the grass is kind of starting to die. Probably isn't as nutritious and things like that. So just always make sure you're kind of paying attention to the feed value of what's going into the cows. Secondly is just being on a good mineral program. There are a lot of different products out there and companies that make kind of a top-notch mineral, which is something you want to be having your cows on, especially probably the 60 to 90 days before you're going to be breeding, if not year round, if you're kind of set up to be able to provide a high quality mineral year round. So that's always something to make sure that you're doing. And then obviously a solid vaccination program in order to be getting cows bred. Couple of the vaccines you do need to be careful with. Obviously you don't want to be really vaccinating a cow within 30 days of breeding at a minimum. Most people I've talked to say, 40 days at a minimum, if you can really get that done. So that's kind of where we watch that. Obviously, it's if you run calves, and most people see the issue on the first calf heifers, or when you're getting ready to breed heifers and stuff like that, would be as long as you've given the calves a couple rounds in the fall, or if your cows have regularly been vaccinated, you're usually okay in that 30-day window. But if your cattle have never been vaccinated, or if you bought a group of heifers and have no idea what they've received, make sure you're at least 40 days before you would ever try breeding them, just to be on the safe side. Otherwise, that can cause a little bit of a wreck in your sync program. So once you kind of get that going, I'd say a lot of the next part is just, you got to start AIing, and from there it's where it gets better. people, I've been AIing for a lot of years. It's kind of, same as Scott, how he had mentioned that for his herd of cows and kind of calling for repro efficiency. And, AI kind of does that for itself. So over the years, mainly if you just kind of are grouping syncing a group of cows and you AI them, and let's just say this year you kind of got 60%, that is average. So then next year, you keep doing it and you just keep doing it. Well, hopefully you get a few heifer calves out of it. And over time you can, if all your replacements are just your AI sired calves, you are naturally selecting for higher fertility cows. So over the period of time, you are actually building a more fertile cow herd by synchronizing and then keeping back your AI kept heifer calves, because those are the cows that are fertile that did stick AI. So that's probably the biggest thing of how you can kind of start getting ahead. It is a definite patience thing, and obviously you get one calf a year, so it does take a lot of years to be able to get that kind of built into your herd, to start getting where people are getting that 80, 90, 100% AI rates and things like that. But you just got to make sure that you got the basics down of vaccines, mineral, taking care of the cattle, over time. If your cows are going through the chute more often, is it low stress now that they're getting more used to it? So there's not as much, the cattle getting worked up that they only go through the chute regularly one time before that. And then, I've always said, even if you do have the ability to do, a high quality mineral throughout the year, I've always said it's kind of no different than people, or we take a prenatal. And that obviously turns into the best things, and they call it fetal programming in cattle. So if you are able to have a high plan of nutrition throughout that pregnancy, I think it does benefit you a lot in the long haul, for those younger animals once they are born to be better in your herd.
Scott or Adam, anything to add?
That was well said.
I will add a little bit. I think it's not necessarily directly tied to nutrition, but Trevor did touch on it a little bit. As you go through the years and use an AI program, and you stick with an AI program, your herd will naturally become much more fertile, because the cows that don't get bred in an AI program, those animals, they will cull themselves over years. And I think, as Trevor referred to, I think that's really how my herd has become so fertile is I don't run a cleanup bowl, and I haven't. We pretty much do 100% AI here. So if she didn't settle, she just goes away. It's just kind of the way it is. So it takes time. As I say, these herds, if you stay in business long enough, they will adjust to the management style of the owner. Now, whether that's good or bad, we don't know, but the cow herd will adjust to it. I think one of the other thing that goes along with that is cow size, for example. I mean, I may be getting off on something that I shouldn't be, but cow size is kind of dictated by the feed program. Would you agree, Trevor? I mean, some people tend to just go based on a dry matter intake. This is what they get, and this is it. So as time goes on, those hard doing cows, those bigger cows, probably don't get the nutrients they need, and then in turn are culled because they didn't breed back accordingly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always said too, there's nothing wrong with big cows, but if a big cow gets a rock in its foot, it goes downhill a lot faster than a smaller cow with a rock in its foot, and things like that too. So it just depends on what your preference is. But we have a lot of people, and luckily in our 3 states where CentralStar, there's a lot of good feed, so we can also have big cows around here too, due to corn silage and other things like that. So I know this is probably one of the more big topics, so I would really encourage people to ask questions, just because obviously AIing is fun and picking out bulls is fun, but if we don't get cows pregnant, then it's not fun. So this is something I wanted to kind of spend some time on if anybody does really have some questions, because honestly, buying the unit to semen and the input cost and the time of doing it, it really needs to come down to getting cows pregnant. So if anybody has any questions or wants to talk through it, we'd be happy to answer what we can.
If I could chime in on one part of that is the low stress handling. The last thing we need to do is get a cow completely worked up and sweating and breathing hard before the breeding. It's the conception rates aren't going to be as good on animals that aren't handled with ease. In my experience in the past, it's investment in handling equipment it's better for everybody, honestly.
So remember, you might need to unmute yourself if you have questions for the specialists. All right, we're going to move on and talk about some genetics, but again, you can jump in at any time. I did just remember though that there is the specialists put together an AI management checklist, and that is in the spring issue of the CentralStar Beef Tips newsletter, which is just being printed and going out in the mail today, and then it'll be emailed out to any of our customers that we have email addresses on later this week. So you might find that as a resource that might be helpful for you as well. But let's jump to some sire highlights.
Oh, we do have a question.
Oh, perfect.
See if I can pull it up here in the chat.
It says,
or do you got it?
yep. Is it worth it to breed non-estrus cows with GnRH 72 to 84 hours on a 7-day cedar protocol? Or wait until they are in a good standing heat?
So I can take this one, I guess. So typically, like my cows, I do synchronize everything just because of my work schedule and also the calving schedule thing where I'm kind of on the road here and there, and I just need to know when I need to be home to breed and when I need to be home to calve. So what I do on mine is no matter what, if I ran them through that sync program and everything will be bred at 72 hours with a shot of GnRH. The reason for that is a lot of times if let's just say that cow hasn't shown a heat, pretty much you have set up her repro tract to set up to be able to ovulate. So there should be a follicle there that has a good egg on it. So that way, when you do give that shot of GnRH, that's going to force an ovulation within 12 hours of when you give that shot. So ideally, if you give, if you would breed the cow, your semen is usually alive for 24 hours. We give that shot of GnRH. It's going to try and meet the egg with the semen at the correct time in order to breed. So I always tell people if you went through the progress and the program and things like that, I would breed everything no matter what, because even those non-estrus cows, I'd still say in theory, you probably get about half of those pregnant.
All right. They say thank you. Looks like you answered that question.
Yep, I would agree.
All right. Let's, well, again, type in any questions that you might have, but let's talk about a few sire highlights. Scott, let's start with you on some Simmental bulls. We asked you to just pick a couple bulls that are your favorites, either new and coming, offspring you have. What are some recommendations that you have for this group?
So I think I'll start with a bull by the name of Dutton, and he's a new bull. He's a new bull that's come to us. He's pedigree wise, he's very different to anything else that we've had in the program. So I think he's a bull that's going to work very well on a lot of the animals that are sired by Select currently. So he's one different pedigree, top and bottom. I know the Hooks Eagle bull, there's a fair amount of progeny out there, but not so much at Select sires. So I think he's going to work really well on our our Select bred animals for sure. An older bull that I think gets overlooked a little bit. I've got some females here, and that's a bull by the name of Broad Range. I've actually got some now that have just come with their second calves. I remember last year after I calved them the first time, I called Ryan down at Select and said, hey, I said, this is a bull that people really need to look at. He's extremely high on ribeye. These are some really good cows. They may not be the eye candy like everybody wants to look at, but they certainly milk well and weaned some very heavy calves for me as happened last year. So that's just two bulls. I mean, that I think we need to look at. Again, broad range, just because he may get overlooked because not everybody knows about him. And Dutton's going to be a new bull, and I think we're going to sell a lot of semen on Dutton this year.
All right, thanks, Scott. Trevor.
Can I add just a little bit about Dutton?
Oh, absolutely.
When we were out in Montana for the National Beef Tour, we got to see Dutton's mom, and she had just came off the range, and she was in, I mean, good enough shape, good footed cow, gets out and moves well, good uddered, mild temperament to her. I was pretty impressed, and you know, a lot of it starts with a good cow base before you can get to a good sire, and he's definitely out of a good mama.
Yeah, that's nice that you get to see some of the offspring or, you know, the dams in person through that National Beef Tour, or sometimes even when you're at Select Sires. So thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Trevor, how about a couple sire highlights for the Angus breed?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go a little bit, I guess, off the beaten path. I'm sure most people, you know, followed us over the last couple of years, you know, in the proven bulls, we got like Tahoe and Growth Fund and Hometown. You know, as far as the young, exciting bulls, we got Craftsman, Rise Above. A lot of those, you know, new bulls that are kind of up front there with the big pictures, Gettysburg, things like that. Two bulls I just wanted to talk about, just because they might not catch your attention without, you know, kind of looking through the book a little bit deeper, would be Saluda would be one. So 757 Saluda out of Jans. So that bull there, he's right on the brink of calving ease. So depending on what you know what your heifers are, you could potentially use them on heifers. If you want something a little bit more probably surefire calving ease, I probably would avoid it. But he's definitely a bull that's going to be, you know, good on your cows and things like that. But as far as his EPD profile, you know, he's a Stitz Seller son, which is he's kind of one of the young exciting bulls out of that bull. And then you know, across his EPDs, they're all really good, balanced. There's really not one thing that falls too low on him as far as, you know, most people would be concerned. And I think he's going to be a good improver on most traits. People, you know, the calves that come out of them, they're actually like, you know, just kind of coal black. They're just really, really nice black calves that have a lot of vigor to them. So he's been making some waves in the program. His dam actually brought us to bull Top Cut, which is another AI bull at Select Sires. So it is kind of, you know, his mother is a very, very proven cow that's had a couple bulls in the lineup there. So a little bit of an outcross pedigree for a lot of our cattle too. So I think he'll get a lot of use from some people. And then a different bull, that's another newer one we have, is just a bull called Square Deal. So I know obviously Scott has brought it up before, and I have the same belief that you make good cows, you make good bulls, you make good everything. So you just want to stick to making good cows. So I think he'll be a good one to do that. He comes out of Myers Fair and Square, which was a really nice bull, and then goes back to, you know, just going to be a good all around cow making bull, and that's kind of the you know, Square Deals same package there too. They will be maybe a tick framier. Now I wouldn't say they're going to be, you know, huge frame, but they will be a little bit on the bigger side. So if you're just looking to put a little more power in the cows, size, weight, obviously in a lot of the Midwest things here, we do sell cows by the pound. So it is important to make sure we are producing some pounds and good footed all around animals that way too. So just a bull, I think if people kind of like to follow some of those pedigrees and things like that, he does add in some decent, you know, carcass quality and stuff like that. You know, his marbling and ribeye are both in the top 30%. So you're going to be able to keep increasing that also. But just a good bull people should take a look at if you're just kind of looking for that outside the box, outcross bull to make some good mama cows.
Well, Trevor, going back to those first two bulls you picked out too, I guess, you know, I looked at them a little bit, but the other thing that we have going on out here, and the thing that I like about both of those bulls is, I think in some cases, depending on where you're at, and as we get further north, it seems like we feed cows manually 6 months of the year for sure. Sometimes we feed them, us getting up close to 7 months. Then it's all about these intakes, and there is a correlation, I think, between size and intakes and all that other thing. And those two Jan bulls you mentioned, they're pretty average. They're very average, I think, for frame, according to the yearling heights that are on those two bulls. And yet both have good foot scores. Their energy numbers are within reason. So I just wanted to point that out to these people, or who's ever on. That's a couple bulls to look at. Great feet, moderate size.
Great, thanks, Scott. Adam, you're going to round things out for us tonight on sire highlights with Hereford and Red Angus.
Well, you just cut me off when I talked too long here, but the Red Angus is something I've really kind of gotten more into over the last few years here. And the one that excites me the most is the Beaver Jump Start. I was pretty excited to see him come on board. The power that he adds into his offspring is pretty phenomenal. I was lucky enough to be able to see him and Blue Chip down in Ohio at the stud, and both very nice bulls, very nice bulls. Jumpstart, he comes with a little bit more growth to him, which is welcomed from my point of view. I actually bred my Simmental heifers to him this year. We did have a few calves out of the 9 Mile franchise on the ground. Those are coming along real well. Calved real easy. Cows got up. You know, the first calf heifers that got right up took care of them, and those calves took right off and are doing great. As far as going back to the jump start, I got on Bieber's last sale they had, and looking at the yearling heifers, and you could just about pick out every one of them just watching the video. The way those heifers are built was pretty impressive. And you look at his EPD spread, and it's pretty darn powerful from left to right all the way across there. If you're looking to improve your carcass a little bit and still keep calving ease, I would lean towards Blue Chip on that. He is, top 2% for marbling, and ribeye up in the top 20% there. But as far as new bull, the Bieber Checkmate, you're going to keep a little bit of flexibility on the mating with him being on a paycheck on the top side, but still a good, powerful bull coming out of that Bieber program, and kind of excited to see what he's going to do in the future here for us. So, and I think we still have semen on Spartacus bull, that he was just one of those good old tried and true cow makers from a few years back. I mean, it's just one of those bulls that you couldn't really go wrong with. He'll just do a good job for you. And, touching back on the Herefords from earlier in the conversation, again, if I was to choose one to start off with, not worrying about calving ease or anything like that, I would start with the Gold Rush. The biggest thing I've heard on him was that he needs a better picture in the catalog to justify what he can do to help people, and it's really not even that bad of a picture. But the power that he's bringing in, and just the phenomenal job he's doing for producers that I've heard so far. So. And I said, Kuda's been around for 9 years now, and well, he's 9 years old anyway. But a good, solid calving ease bull there that I've bred, a few heifers to here and there for customers, and so far so good. And there's a small handful of a couple of newer bulls here, but we don't have a whole lot of demand for the Hereford side of things around here. Just a few that just dabble in it. So my experience is a little bit limited on those. But
Trevor, or
everybody has
Scott, anything to
chime-
add? They look frozen, don't they, Adam?
I'd say Adam did a good job. So
Okay.
Yeah, he kind of covered it all, so we're good.
Well, like I said, the Red Angus deal, I've kind of went down a rabbit hole of learning those. My son's sitting next to me here, and I bet you he could probably recite everything I just told you because I've jabbered to him a bunch about it too. So.
All right. Thanks, Adam. I have been, Ryan is having difficulty being able to connect. He's still traveling. One question that we wanted to ask him, because it had come in through registration, was, are there any plans for more shorthorn bulls in the lineup? And he said that they are currently pursuing one. There's not a high demand, but they are currently pursuing one. So that's about all I can share on that at the time. Ryan apologizes for the travel dilemma, but we all know how that goes. So before we close out, I do have one impromptu question for each of our beef specialists. So I'm going to give them the question and then check and see if anybody else has a question. But I'm curious to have you share with our participants what sire do you currently have, and so what offspring of sire, what sire's offspring do you currently have in your lot that you're super excited about? So while they're thinking about that, if anyone else on the call has a question, you can type it in the chat or unmute yourself, because we will get ready to wrap up here. All right, Adam, I'm going to start with you. What sire offspring are you super excited about in your own lot?
So the ones I have on the ground right now, like I said, those 9 Mile franchise, that Red Angus bull, he did exactly what I asked him to do, is get those heifers calved out. You know, those calves had plenty of vigor. They're, Simmental heifers, and so produced half bloods, and those calves, you can pick them out. They're good. They're going to be great cows. They're going to be phenomenal cows. I'm very pleased with them, and I did use a little bit of rainfall too, and I really like the good foot quality that Angus bull puts on his offspring, and the Springer rib and just capacity that those will carry through. Again, my cows are predominantly Simmental, so coming back on them with an Angus or a Red Angus bull kind of complements them pretty well.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Trevor.
So I would say, I've got a lot that I really like, but I probably have to take my favorite calves are honestly the 2 young bulls I gambled on last year. So I'd say Statesman and then Step Up are by far probably my favorite 2. The Statesman calves have really honestly blown me away. They grow and they look great as far as phenotype, things like that. I will be pulling genomic samples here at the end of the week when put all the cows go up to pasture here after I get done AIing. So I'll be able to send all them in, and I'm kind of interested to see how they all number up as far as the genomic test and things like that. But the Statesman's, I mean, they've really blown me away as far as that. It'll be interesting to see how they develop into bulls and cows and things like that. I know obviously there's been a little bit where we kind of got to watch a little bit careful with him, on his EPDs and things like that. He is kind of, average on foot and stuff like that. And then just kind of throughout some of his pedigree, you want to caution on some of that stuff, which is no secret in the Angus breed and things like that. But he was one I really wanted to sample, and I really love the calves so far at, being 3-4 months old right now. Step Up calves, same way. They just look great. They came out, and the Step Up calves at birth, I mean, you could tell that, the cow had a calf. I mean, not that it was overly big, but it was definitely like a, more of a, a thicker and, just a kind of a stout little packaged calf. Within 2-3 days, you walked out there and you knew every step up that you could see, just because, they were built like a beef calf. So those are my 2 favorites, so far. I was happy I gambled with, usually pick 1 or 2 young bulls using my cows, and I think this year I hit 2 really good ones. So
Great. Thanks, Trevor. And Scott, round us out.
So that's good to know, Trevor. I know a little bit about the Angus, and I have a few. So every Angus cow that I owned last year, for whatever reason, I bred them all to Statesman.
Well, I don't want to say, I guess since you're at 100%, I didn't get into it, but Statesman actually ran 100% conception in my stuff too. And, I mean, we did pretty well because we ran 90% on all the cows, but I mean, I look back through my records and Statesman did settle 100%. So that was pretty good on him. So.
Yeah, I've got 2 Statesman calves on the ground now. One's a little bit older. They look really good. There's a lot to them actually. I had more to them than I expected. So they look good. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there. That the few Angus I do own, that I bred them all to Statesman. So, so on the Simmental side, for me, is animals that are going to that brought some excitement. Again, I'm going to go back to enhancement. And then part of it is because his sire, who was Proclamation, naughty word, not our bull, but I've got a lot of, when I say a lot, I've probably got 8 or 9 Proclamation daughters here that are coming with their second, third calves. They are phenomenal cows, and I think enhancement, being a Proclamation son, he appears to be a little bit smooth in the shoulder and all the way through. So I'm really, really excited to see what they're going to be like as when I calve them out next year. But new bulls, I got a few red cows and I struggle every year, like everybody does. I got to try and keep a few red ones. So the Honor Guards, anyhow, that's why I used him on all my red cows, and actually a few of the blacks also. So I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to end up to be like. But Honor Guards got tremendous numbers. It appears to be a lot of growth. They're very nice, thick calves. So we'll see where that goes. But everybody's trying to salvage a red. If they had them in the past, they're trying to salvage them, but it's really hard to do. Really hard to do. They just keep turning black.
All right. Well, thank you guys for answering that question about what you're seeing in your own lots. That's exciting for you. This brings to a close everything that we've had prepared for tonight. Again, if you have a question, feel free to unmute or drop a note in the chat. Otherwise, we appreciate you joining us. Appreciate Adam and Scott and Trevor for being on the hot seat here. We will send you a follow-up email with information, a link to this call again, if you would want to listen to it again, but really that's more for the people who didn't tune in. And it'll also have information on how you can contact our beef specialist. And also, Ryan just sent me a quick email, and he says there is still some bedrock semen available, and they will continue to collect that bull as they can. So I know that we've sent out some communication about folks being able to get early access to the bedrock bull. So with that, and he says we continue to expand the sexed semen lineup. So that's something that they're expanding on as demand grows, and demand is growing. So, so that's it. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. And be sure to reach out to our beef specialists and let them help you if they can. Bye, everyone. Thank you.